talk about it. Foods that cause GI diseases or just GI distress or GI disturbances, however you want to put it. So there are a number of different ones. Now again, if you've been watching me for any length of time, you're going to know that gluten is at the top of that list. Gluten as a protein found in wheat, barley, rye, and other grains can contribute to damage to the GI tract, particularly the small intestine, directly causing villous atrophy. But many of you watching me already are going gluten-free. You've already done the gluten-free diet to a great degree. You're already complying with that. So we want to dive in a little bit more to some of the other things that beyond gluten that can still continue to cause GI distress. And so one of those categories of foods, it's a category, you might have heard of this before, it's called FODMAPs, F-O-D-M-A-P-S. FODMAPs, also known as fermentable oligomono and polysaccharides, are basically items that can be found in food and sweeteners and sugar-like substances that are found in food that can be very, very difficult to digest. They tend to cause a lot of gastric distress, particularly gas and bloating. Perfect example of a food high in FODMAP or high in fructose in this case would be something like honey. Many people try to use honey as a natural sweetener to do their grain-free baking and find they don't do very, very well with it at all. So honey can be one of those things you want to be paying close attention to. If it gives you a lot of gas and bloating, you may have a problem with FODMAPs. Now there are other FODMAPs beyond honey. One of the other common things used in baking and grain-free baking are your alcohol sugars, the things like xylitol or tagatose. If you've used products on the market like Xylosweet or TheraSweet and you didn't do well and they caused you a lot of gas and intestinal discomfort, could very well be the reason why is you're not tolerating FODMAPs very well. Another kind of class within the FODMAPs, garlic and onion, which are commonly used in a number of different recipes to add seasoning and flavoring to the food. And so especially if you're cooking any ethnic types of food at all, onion and garlic can be used quite heavily, and a lot of people struggle a lot with those. We actually have, I'll put it into the feed here for you, we have a link. It's Stanford Medical has a really nice list of the FODMAP foods, and so beyond the sake of going into every single one, I'm going to post that link in the feed for you. So if you think that FODMAPs may be something that you're struggling with or you want to investigate a little bit more closely, FODMAPs, feel free to do that. Now, if you suspect FODMAPs, one of the things that I want you to understand is it doesn't mean you have to eliminate them all. As you're looking at a list of all the FODMAP containing foods, it can be overwhelming and somewhat daunting, and a lot of people get paralyzed with fear and they just can't move forward anymore. Don't start with the whole list of FODMAPs. Kind of look at them by groupings and start, maybe remove one group at a time and see how well you do. So you don't necessarily need to remove that entire list all at the same time. Again, a lot of people freak out when they see that list because it's a lot of the common things that you add to your food, or it's a lot of the common things that you cook your food with. Okay, so we're talking about FODMAPs. Again, we're posting that link up into the feed for you because we could do an entire show on FODMAPs alone, but I want to kind of make sure that we're getting a broad sweep of all of these because a lot of people end up missing key elements when they just go on a gluten-free diet. Now, if you have not heard of this term before, I'm going to back up for just a minute. If you haven't heard this term, true gluten-free, that could be one of the other issues that you're struggling with, is that you're still eating what are considered to be the classic gluten-free grains. You need to look up True Gluten-Free Diet. You can go to glutenfreesociety.org and read more about this. You can also go to Barnes & Noble or pick up No Grain, No Pain from Amazon.com or any other major book retailer. That's No Grain, No Pain, where we talk about the True Gluten-Free Diet, because a lot of you are consuming you're still consuming glutens. You just don't realize that those things are glutens, and that, examples include things like corn and rice and sorghum and millet. So again, if you're using a lot of those products, those gluten-free products from the grocery store shelves made by those different types of grains, know that you could be creating a much bigger problem for yourself. Another family of foods that's somewhat notorious for creating or can create an issue in the GI tract is the nightshades. And now, again, I'm going to speak from my own experience within the clinic, and that is the big one that I see creating most of the problem for a lot of people is potato, not so much some of the other ones. Now I'm talking about tummy problems or gut problems. Now I see a lot of people with nightshades, things like eggplant and tomato and peppers, have horrendous joint pain as a result of nightshade consumption if they are nightshade sensitive, and that's not what I'm referring to here. I'm referring to the potato, and whether it's a white potato or a red potato or a russet potato or a golden potato or a potato with brown skin and white innards. And I'm not talking about sweet potatoes here, but I'm talking about the potato plant itself, the root vegetable. This is where we'll see a lot of problems. There have been some studies that have shown that white potatoes actually cause leaky gut. And I don't know if we have that image on cue here, but if Alan can pull that for us, if we've got it in a file, I'll pop that up on the screen right now and show you there are a number of different causes for leaky gut. One of them has actually been shown to be potato, and it's because there's a compound in potato that can actually irritate the GI tract and irritate the gut lining, leading to that damage. So very important. Again, if you're eating a lot of potato, maybe you're already grain-free, maybe you've already investigated FODMAPS, but you're eating potato on a frequent basis. A lot of people cook with potato flour, or they're using potato starch to thicken their gravy, or they're just eating the regular potatoes. This is something you definitely want to consider. Now, another group here is dairy, and I did an entire show on dairy. I'm not going to belabor. 90% of the points are very well explained in that past episode. We can probably throw that link up in the feed as well for those of you who haven't seen it or want to know more about dairy. But what I want to focus on with the dairy creating GI distress has more to do with this, lactose intolerance, than it has to do with dairy allergy or dairy mimicking gluten or the processing of dairy making the dairy protein resemble gluten, or the fact that that dairy in and of itself, for many people, the way the dairy is the way the dairy cows themselves are fed, and some of the problems that go into the hormones with dairy. We're talking about the lactose intolerance. Understand that lactose is a sugar that is found in dairy products, and many people don't have the enzyme, the lactase. They don't produce adequate quantities of lactase in their GI tract to be able to break down lactose, and so this is where it creates an intolerance type of response, or an indigestion, gas, bloating, burping or belching. These are all potential symptoms of lactose intolerance. Now, many people will go with the different dairy-based products that have the enzyme, the lactase in it, in essence, the enzyme that helps you break them down, and they feel better. They don't get quite the GI distress when they use those products. I don't recommend them because they're highly processed, and you're not going to get healthy. You're not going to seek and find health in the bottom of a highly processed container of food that's been manipulated to such a great degree to allow you to be able to tolerate something that your body doesn't want you to tolerate. So I don't recommend them. Use with caution. But again, dairy and lactose intolerance is one of the most overlooked. I've heard people say, come into the office, you know what, I just can't give up my ice cream. I don't want to give it up. And you always have that choice, right? This is not me telling you what to do. This is me trying to give you information so you can make more intelligent decisions about how to get healthy. So, choose as a good discretion is my advice. Hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below. And as always, thanks for tuning in.